Hi,
Hi.
I'm Maria Elizabeth. This is Li Jun. And I wanted to come on live with her today. Li Jun was in my Relationship Alchemy program that I did 2020 to 2021. And she just had these amazing results, especially around communication. So I wanted to get on live here directly with her so she could talk about what it was like to put focus there, to work on that, and the breakthrough she had, because we can tend to resist asking for what we want in our relationships because of hidden factors. Like sometimes we're aware of why it's hard to ask, but sometimes it's not really aware, and it's helpful to have somebody ask you questions and pull out reasons why it might be hard. So when we start to unpack that, it gets easier and easier to create what we want, which is what Li Jun did. And so, welcome. Hi.
Hello.
It's so good to
Hi.
see your
Yay.
face. Yay. So, we haven't chatted in a minute, but I
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to, it's been a while. And so, and I guess I'll preface by saying we knew each other through the poetry
Yes.
world first.
Yeah.
And that's how we connected. And then I shifted into relationship coaching. And at that point, you reached out when I was enrolling for Relationship Alchemy the last time. And I'd love to know a little bit, if you can think back. I know it was a while back,
Yeah.
but can you think back to kind of why you reached out or what was going through your mind? Because your marriage is good, but you
Yeah.
still wanted more support. So what was happening?
Well, actually, I had been following your work and I really appreciated it. You give so generously, like with what you do. And so already I was just eating all the stuff up because I think, relationships are take tending to. So all the tidbits that I could get, like I would like, oh yeah, that's a good reminder, or oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. So I was like, um, following your things, and then you mentioned this was the 2020 to 2021. So like clearly we were in a pandemic. I had at that time a 3-year-old and a newborn.
Yes, he was so little.
And he was so little. And I was like losing my mind. And I actually felt like the turmoil in the outside world. I had also lost my dad not too long to prior. He passed away in December 2019. So like just I was a my marriage actually felt like very good because we do well when like the outside world is crazy. Like we just like
Mm,
know how to team against, right?
that's
Like
so
when we have a
good.
common
Yes,
like, and we're
yes.
like, and he's a doctor, so like coronavirus is
Oh,
like, all
so
right,
even
let's
more.
do
Yeah.
this. We gotta. So that felt generally good, but I didn't feel good.
Mm.
And I can see that looking back. In the moment, I was like, well, everything's crazy. So it makes sense that this feels crazy.
Yeah.
And I think you reached out to me actually, and we just had a
Was that right?
conversation. And I was like, oh, no, but it was, it was because I had been following you. So I maybe messaged you just in general, but like, you're like, hey, you know, let's have a chat. And we chatted. And I was like, well, I don't know. Like the marriage is good. Like we're good. We're a good team. And you're like, well, sometimes when things are going good is the best time to like solidify. Like don't just wait till things are, because we had a rough patch, especially after our first was born, because
Mm.
of the shift to parenthood was very dramatic. And I was like, oh, that's true. Like it.
It's
And
like
as soon
there's
as we
bandwidth.
started
It's so
working
funny.
together, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I really needed this.
It's so funny you
Because
say
all
that
of a
because
sudden I was like, I'm not well. And when I'm not well,
yeah.
everyone's relationship is like, so I started noticing that there was a lot more eggshell walking than I had admitted maybe in our first call, right? Like
Yes. Yes.
where we were both like, let's try to keep everything because we're on top of each other. There's a lot going on. We can't go socialize with our friends. Like there's a lot of things. Our families are far away. We can't see them. I'm still in grief. Like it was just a lot. And
Yeah.
as soon as we started working together, a lot of things opened up in terms of like, oh, there's stuff here that having space, like dedicated space to muddle through is super valuable and super helpful to me. And I think what you make so clear and so not even in any spoken way, but just evident in the work, is that there's no working on relationships without the working on the relationship with yourself, like where you are.
Amen.
Like
Well
it's just,
said.
it was
yes.
in the work, like that just came very clear. And so much of what was difficult for me was feeling out of touch with myself. And I think grief probably had a lot to do with that, but just like I was not at all in touch with like what I wanted, what I needed. So like you can't ask for what you want if you don't even know. But it hadn't occurred to me that I wasn't even like, none of that occurred to me until
because you also were nursing a newborn. So it's also like
there was a lot going on, but there was also I felt like I didn't have any space to even, I would not have come to that conclusion, I don't think, myself. But having like, I can't remember how frequently we met, but just having a place where I was coming to be in that space of thinking or feeling through these things made space for that stuff to come out. So that was beautiful. Like that was really powerful. And that was the first step, being like, oh, what do I want? Like communication. We can't even get there. Like, I don't even know what I want to communicate.
I don't know what to say. Right. And also
I'm tired.
Yeah. Like, tell me if this is true. Because tell me if this is true too for you, that because this is something I see a lot, where when it's not really clear what we want, but we know something feels off and we don't feel good, the first tendency can be to look at, well, what are they doing wrong? Right. And it's like, and my encouragement is always, and this is what I taught in the program, was to get the focus off that for a moment and get clear on what I want first. You know, because it's like when it's fuzzy and unclear, but I just know it doesn't feel good and I don't like what's happening and I don't feel like I'm in touch with myself. And so, you know, to bring that attention back and figure out what you want first, and then you can ask for it. And through the asking clearly, because I teach processes to do that effectively. And then you get to discover, as you did, like, oh, we are a good team. Like he actually does want me to have what I want, you know? So instead of leading with blame of like, it doesn't feel good, you're doing something. It's like coming to, I don't feel good, fix it. It's like, oh, actually what I want is this. How can we make this happen? It's such a powerful stance. And so I'd love to hear in your words a little bit about that transition, because you made a really big ask and a big shift through the course of the program.
Yeah. So the thing that I realized I wanted desperately was time to myself. And it was really hard because I was nursing. So there's logistics involved, right? Like what time of day and when, and a very demanding, very energetic toddler, preschooler, and a husband with a lot of work, like a big schedule. So figuring out. So I wanted time to myself, but then there were a couple of things. So then I started asking for like after he got home. And I remember feeling like it didn't feel like enough. And two, like it was just like this little break. And then I had to come back to the chaos and it felt like not satisfying. And one thing you're like, you can't spend your whole time being annoyed with how little the time, like you have to like feel like
take the time,
like feel good in the time and acknowledge, okay, maybe it's not exactly what you, but like, don't waste the time, not even having the time. I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally doing that.
Oh, I have this time and it's not enough.
It's like, yeah. Yeah. So that was the
Yeah.
one thing. And then the second thing I realized in the course was like, I probably felt much more comfortable asking for time when I needed to do something.
Oh,
So
great
like if I had an
noticing.
ACLU meeting or I want to work out, like if I'm doing something, it was very easy because it felt justified.
Yes.
But what I came to realize was that's not what I didn't want to work out. I wanted to sleep.
Yes.
I wanted to not have the children on top of me. That's what
Yeah.
I wanted.
Yeah.
And I had to come to terms with that being was enough. That like I had to believe that before I
Oh,
could
say
ask
that
for it.
again. That is so
That
important.
being is enough. Like I just actually
Yes.
want to be, and I cannot be with everyone on top of me, which is what like was status quo because they're young kids.
Yeah,
Young kids want to be on top of you.
they
Um,
do. Tell me,
and
drop in the chat if you're watching live. Let us know, and let us know what you're realizing or what you're resonating with, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, because this is such an important thing that Li Jun just said. We tend to justify our requests only when we have something to do. And what is it to actually ask for space to be and to feel right with that? It's huge as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a woman.
yeah, and
Okay, keep going.
And in that process, and in that process, you're like, and what? Don't just when we were figuring out like what is the want, what is the ask. I don't remember how you phrased it, if it was a question or but it came to the point of I want to know not what you think you can get. I want to know what you want. And that was another one like, wow.
That's a key distinction. Let's unpack that for a second.
Yes.
I'm so glad you remembered that because we will, yes, and we will tend to shrink our wants to what we think we can get. We like preemptively make smaller what we're asking for, what we think we can have, because we're trying to kind of hedge against disappointment, I think, a lot of the time.
100%.
As opposed to asking for the full thing we want and then sticking around to negotiate.
Right.
Because if we don't ask for the full thing, we definitely will not get the full thing. We'll get the small thing, and then we'll be resentful because it's not the full thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a losing circle we get ourselves into.
Yeah, so that was another thing that I come
That's
back
huge.
to a lot, and that has been so amazing beyond like the ask I'm going to talk about now in our relating when he asks.
Yes.
Because
tell me what opened up there.
There is that like I won't just say yes because I feel like I should. I say, awesome. I want to say a full yes. I want to be able to say yes. And the way this is set up, it like doesn't feel good yet. Can we figure out how to get me to yes? And like we've had conversations there
so
where it's
good.
Like, I want to say yes, but the way this isn't like that me, this affects me this way. And like, that doesn't feel good to me. So like, what can we, and so that's related to the ask I made, which was to sleep in on Saturday mornings, which seemed like such a silly thing, but was what I wanted to be. And the best time to be is to sleep in because I'm more of a night owl. And he and the kids are morning people. And so all week I'm like being dragged with their energy. And I wanted one day where I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to start until 9. Can we make that work? And so, yeah, it was like the negotiating I can't remember the conversation, but we got there.
Of course, it's been so long.
And it was like, oh, yeah, it was just beautiful to get that. And then
to have it, and then then the next step.
And then he needed to change his workout day from Sunday to Saturday. And I was like, but that's my time. Like, what are we gonna, because he was going gym, grocery shopping. That was like his Sunday morning thing. And I was like, I want to say yes, but that's like that yes doesn't, can we? And he's like, well, market doesn't open till 9 on Sunday. So you could still do your sleep in on Sunday. and I'll do the gym on Saturday. Like, we can just switch which day. I was like, I don't know if he offered that or if I was like, well, when do you need to leave by Sunday? Because I don't care which day it is. I just want to have, and it worked out. And we worked it out because we had already,
that's great.
but it was one of those things where, like, I want to say yes. I don't want you to lose your weekend workout day because his gym wasn't going to do Sundays anymore. Yeah. And I still need, this thing. So,
well, I want to
Sundays, some Sundays, the littlest one is like dragging me out and I like lay on the couch instead of in bed. So it's still like, obviously I'm negotiating with not just the husband.
Now you're negotiating with the kids. Yeah. But I want to unpack a few things that I hear in what you said that are so crucial, I think, to land, which are, number one, you made a super clear request. I want to sleep until 9 and not have kids or husband in the room, in the bed, on top of me, near me at all. Number two, you advocated for it, like, and negotiated. You made the request, you stuck around to negotiate. And then when there needed to be a switch, like his schedule needed to change, you continued to advocate, like, yes, I want to give you what you want. And this is a non-negotiable, essentially. Even if you didn't say it that way, it's like having a morning where I sleep in is now a requirement. And so that you stuck around and you figured out a way to do it. And of course, sometimes, a kid will still be on top of you, et cetera. But the baseline that I'm hearing you say is that your desire is worthy, that you are worthy to have it, that you are worthy to negotiate for, and that it makes you more generous in receiving his 100%. Requests.
Yes.
Yeah, like by you asking for what you want, you actually have more space to be generous and receive what he wants. Mm-hmm. And both of you can negotiate, as opposed to the earlier habit, which a lot of us have, which is to say yes too often to the other person and to our kids. And then we get sort of shrunk and squished in the back, like our desires get small and, not
and both ways
fulfilled,
because then we realize way down the road, like, that the other person has been holding back.
Yes.
Like, something comes up and they're like, oh, well, I didn't. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know any of that was going on.
Let's talk about this. Whoa.
We didn't. None of we haven't talked about that. He's like, well, I didn't think I could. And I'm like, but I get it. Cause, like, if I'm like, like, who wants to ask me anything?
Exactly. Right. So this is, again, another beautiful outgrowth of asking for what you want. It actually gives your partner permission to ask too. It opened up space of honest communication between you two, instead of the kind of eggshell walking, like you said you've been doing, that both of you could now come more, like, I heard in my head, come correct, but like could come more honest, like could come more real with what you actually wanted, because you trust the baseline of team, right? Because you mentioned, like, we're a good team. Like, when shit goes on out in the world, like, we know how to, luchar, like, we know how to meet it. But entre nosotros, like, between you two, it's like, how do you stay on the same team even when you want something different, or you have to negotiate a desire to make it work? So I super celebrate all of that. Big time. Yeah. And so before we got on, you said, like, this asking thing, it's still a bit of it's still work, right? It's still, I have to consciously remember. So what's it like for you now? Because we haven't, the program ended like a year ago.
The hardest things to still figure out is finding the time and space. Like, the kids are super demanding. And like I said, he and I are at our best at different times of days. So he's a morning person, I'm the night owl. And so like, finding the time when the kids are asleep and we're like good is a challenge. To have that, like, just that, what do we need to negotiate? Or just like that quality time. So I think that's just like a work in progress that we're still working through. But I was just thinking, I'm like, I gotta go listen to those lessons, right? To again tap back into what is it that when I feel that unmoored or like energy, like how do I figure out what is it that I want? Because when I ask, I get closer, like if I don't ask, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just
if you don't
here
ask, it's not going to happen. You're just going to stay here. Exactly. But when you ask, you get closer. And sometimes you can have exactly what you want, how you want it, when you want it. And other times some negotiation is required, to make it work for everybody.
Yeah.
But, what I'm hearing and what you're saying was moving from this place of like, oh, I didn't even realize how much I was denying myself. I was just in the thing.
No, I had no idea. No self-awareness at all. And then I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
I think we don't realize, especially those of us who are super
I'm treading
capable.
Water.
We don't realize we're treading water, because we're super capable and we just keep it moving and we just make it work. And it's like, oh my God, I'm treading water is the first realization. And then from there, you can start to find the floor, the bottom of the pool, and put your feet down and get some fucking support, Yeah. So God, it's just been such a pleasure to talk with you today. Is there any final thing you'd like to share, to support folks in this journey of treading water to like actually having ground and asking clearly for what you want because you're connected?
I wanted to say something about how you set up the program, and I know that it's changed, so I won't speak to specifically like exactly this or that, but I think some of the components, so you can correct me if I'm or if anything has changed. But one thing that happened when we were working together towards the end of our time together, I started realizing that there was totally a chance that I had ADHD undiagnosed until age 40. And by that summer, I did get the diagnosis. Awesome. And what I realized looking back that was so helpful was that some of the things about how your program is set up really worked for me in terms of what I had always used as coping mechanisms to be really to excel academically, even with some of these things. So like the program is structured. So there's lessons, right? So that like my nerdy student, I loved that, getting the information on my own, like listening, learning, and then having, I'm an extrovert, so having the chance to interact with others and create community really fed that part of who I am and what I needed for that support. And then having the coaching was super helpful, like having just that kind of attention to my particular situation that I was bringing was super helpful. But then also the fact that our group was so different, like we were all at different stages of kind of relationship. It was so wonderful learning, because I would see things that I felt like, oh, I've had a situation like that, but that doesn't cause me any. So like, it was a way of seeing myself as successful in relationships, because I was like, oh, I'm not struggling with that issue, but also being like, also seeing like, oh, wow, that's such an amazing thing they're doing. That sounds like something I could try. Like it was just like we learned from each other.
That's part of the magic of being
in community. It wasn't just like, oh, navel gazing. It was like, oh,
it was interactive.
Let me share. Like this helped me with my relationship with a parent, right? Like
that's
so
part of the magic to
all
me
of those pieces were so good, because it wasn't one or the other. It wasn't like, oh, an online course where you get a lot, but like you don't get the personal, or case studies where you learn from everyone else, but you don't feel like your actual thing is addressed. Or one-on-one where you get your thing addressed, but you never have the chance to.
But you don't have the chance to learn what another is doing or what they're going through.
Or a way to see the world about like relationship and be like, oh, I've never thought of things like that. And what would that mean about in my situation? Like, how would that help? Or, like illuminate something that's on the dynamics in our home. And like that, all three components I thought were so generative.
Thank you for naming that, because I I'm doing it as a group for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Because I do work privately with people, and that's great because you go all in on your
Yeah.
particular thing. But what's
Yeah.
so gorgeous about working in a group is that I can still coach on the personal thing, but I might be coaching somebody else over here, and you get a download, you get an
Yeah.
insight,
Yeah.
you see something you hadn't thought to even ask. And then the mutual support that develops, it also super normalizes. I think we can get very stuck. I call it in the relationship silo, like we're just in our own
Yes.
little silo in the relationship, and we're like toughing it out, but I don't know. And so to be in a small group where you're sharing real talk about what's happening and what's going great and what's hard, that it normalizes that we're not doing it wrong, that we're not
Yeah.
messed up. It's just, we all
And
have
it was
certain
about
areas.
relationships in the very broadest sense of the
Yeah.
word. Like I got something
Yeah.
amazing with one of the one of our talks on boundaries.
Yes.
I got such amazing insight on a friendship relationship that had a dust up. And that was so valuable that I was able to apply in another area. So it's not just intimate relationships at all. It's really thinking about how do you work with your relationship with yourself, and how can that help with all
I
the
love that
people
you
in your
brought that
world.
in with all the people in our lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
because this, I've decided it's open to both single and partnered women, because I realized it's less about your relationship status or what your particular romantic situation looks like. And it's more about who am I being in my life, in all my relationships, romantic and otherwise. And that's really the core of, because we have all relationships to all different people in our lives, and who and how we be in them makes all the difference. So that was one of the things I changed, was I decided to open it up to single, partnered, anything in between kind of folks. So that, because the focus is exactly what you said, is like, what is my relationship with myself, and how do I show up in my relationships with other people so that I have what I want, they have what they want, we can negotiate, we're on the same team, we get closer, we communicate effectively. Like, it's just an ongoing process, really.
Yeah. So all of that was there. And I loved it. And I was so grateful because I needed it at that time.
Yeah, it was
in
perfect
particular.
timing.
It was like an intense time in my life. And this was like a really wonderful, like, part of my week to look forward to, was that time we had together. So it was really great. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Yay! I really, really appreciate it. Yay. It's so good to see your face.
I know.
And thanks everyone who, if you're tuning in live or you're tuning in for the replay, I'd love to know your takeaways. Drop in the comments what landed with you. What are you noodling on as a result of having heard Li Yun's story. And see you next time. And un beso to you.
Adios.
Adios, everybody.
Bye.